Leadership does not begin when someone hands you a title. It begins the moment you decide to take responsibility beyond your own task list. Because the real difference between a worker and a leader is not found in effort, but in thinking. Where a worker asks, "What am I supposed to do?" and a leader asks, "What needs to be done?" A shift that changes everything as the worker becomes absorbed in tasks while the leader becomes absorbed in outcomes. One focused on finishing work and the other on defining the right work. And I learned this when I realized I was working hard in the system instead of working on the system, producing motion without direction, because leadership starts in thought, not authority, and clarity matters more than control. Asking not, "How can I get everything done?" but what matters most and why. Where the worker values efficiency and the leader values effectiveness, one polishing the latter while the other checks whether it's leaning against the right wall. When you think like a worker, you wait for instructions. But when you think like a leader, you generate direction, define priorities, and carry vision before it exists on paper. Taking responsibility not just for performance, but for purpose. Because a worker says, "I did my job," while a leader asks, "Did my work move us forward?" And that difference separates management from movement. Since anyone can work hard, but not everyone can think clearly. And thinking requires reflection, courage, and the willingness to question familiar routines. And when you begin thinking like a leader, you stop blaming conditions and start shaping them. Stop waiting for opportunity and start building it. Understanding that leadership is a choice long before it is a role. Because promotions only confirm what your thinking already proved. Where workers measure time and leaders measure impact. Workers aim to stay busy while leaders aim to be useful. And leadership truly begins the day you accept that the future is your responsibility, not your company's or your supervisor's. And once that idea settles in your mind, your behavior changes as you stop showing up just to do a job and start showing up to make a difference. Because before you can lead others, you must first lead your own thinking, where workers see their part and leaders see the whole, lifting their eyes from tasks and numbers to see connections, consequences, and context, understanding how one decision affects many outcomes. Because without perspective, even good work feels meaningless. While leaders understand that every action contributes to a larger mission, asking not "What's my job?" but "How does my job serve the purpose?" Knowing that meaning changes performance. And when people understand why something matters, they work with more care and pride. Which is why leaders think further ahead, asking how this connects and who benefits in the long run. Keeping both the details beneath them and the horizon ahead in view. Because vision is not eyesight, but the ability to see patterns and opportunity before others do. Stepping back to study the map instead of blindly climbing the staircase. Choosing paths that align with purpose rather than mistaking activity for progress. Understanding that workers chase completion while leaders pursue growth. Where every challenge offers the rewards what you get and what you become, and leadership values the second. Knowing that goals alone don't elevate you, but growth does. Because you can hit every target and still remain the same person. While leaders ask not, "Did I finish?" but "Did I improve?" Building foundations instead of resumes. Reflecting instead of rushing. Measuring progress by transformation rather than trophies. Understanding that what you achieve will always follow who you become. That leadership is earned through example rather than authority. Because influence earns commitment while power only enforces compliance. Building trust through consistency, integrity, and self-discipline. Thinking in systems rather than tasks. Designing structures that make excellence repeatable instead of relying on effort alone. Anticipating instead of reacting, preparing for outcomes instead of waiting for instructions. Staying calm under pressure because the moment has already been considered. Knowing that leadership is not about responding faster but thinking sooner. And it all begins with self-leadership, mastering habits, before managing people, operating from internal standards rather than external pressure. Keeping promises to yourself, managing priorities by importance rather than urgency. Realizing that the shift from worker to leader often happens quietly when you understand that doing more is not the same as becoming more. That leadership is not a title to reach, but a mindset to cultivate. Because when your thinking rises, everything else eventually follows.